Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be demonstrating a new feature available in our Simple GIS Collaborate plugin for the Simple GIS client application that I think is pretty exciting. This new feature, it allows you to generate a web mapping application from your Simple GIS client map data view document that can then be shared across the internet with other users. Very simple, inexpensive way to create a web mapping application that can be shared with multiple users. And so it has some neat features that I think hopefully will be really useful, including the ability to use linked documents to your features in your Simple GIS client and transfer those linked documents into your web mapping application. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the demo. And to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and I have my Simple GIS client application window open here currently. And I'm going to create a new project. And I'm going to use one of my project templates here to go ahead and create a new project with a preloaded base map. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use this project template for the Stamen Terrain Tile Mapping Service. And so I'm just going to select this tile, and I can just double click on the tile to create a new project that has this tile mapping service already loaded. And of course it comes in here, and I could actually just zoom in to come into a little more detail. And so this particular web mapping application that I'm going to create today for this demo is a map essentially to show the national parks. And I have some information regarding the national parks as well as some photos for each national park. So if I was to actually look, I have this stored. I have a folder stored here under my public documents, and it's actually just called National Parks. And in this folder, I have a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that contains the information about the parks, as well as several subfolders for each of the national parks. And if I was to open these subfolders, I would see that each subfolder contains a series of photos related to that park. So as you can see, the folder which has the name of the park, and again it has photos specific for that park. Now, if I was to actually look at this Excel spreadsheet that I have here and look at its structure, I would see that it's a very basic spreadsheet. Of course, I have the column names here at the top. Let me make sure I scroll over all the way to the left. And I see it starts with name, and then I have rows of data, and I have the name of each national park that I'm going to be mapping. I also have a column for the number of visitors. This is the annual visitors for each park, as well as a description column. And then I also have a column for the photos. And if I look at the photos column, it simply contains the name of the subfolder with a backward slash after its name. So this is, when Simple GIS reads this, will know that this is a folder, a subfolder. And since I don't have any drive information or any other path information, it's going to interpret this as a subfolder under the root of where this spreadsheet is saved at. So again, if I was to look at my folder structure, I had the spreadsheet here underneath the root of the folder, and then I have these subfolders underneath that root related to each park, which corresponds to the name of the folder here in my photos column. And then finally, I have two other columns. I have one called lat for latitude that has the latitude coordinates for each park. And then I have a long abbreviated for longitude for the longitude coordinates for each park. So if I was to return to my Simple GIS client application, I'm going to add this spreadsheet as a new layer to my map. So I'm going to come up here to my Add Layers tool button. As I click on this layer on the first tab where I can select Shapefile, Images, DXF, I can also select any spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet format or CSV files. So in this case, I'm already at my National Parks folder, and I have I have my National Park spreadsheet here. So if I was to just simply double click on this file name, or simply come here and click the Add Layer button, it'll go ahead and add this spreadsheet to my map. So I'm just going to double click on the file name, and then the first thing that comes up is this option wanting me to select the worksheet that contains the data I'm wanting to map. And of course, in this case, if I click on the drop down, all of my data is on sheet 1 of the spreadsheet. So I'll select it and click Apply. And then I'm going to be prompted whether the first row contains field names. And again, if I look at my spreadsheet, I see that yes, this first row contains all the column names or field names for my data that follows. So yes, I'm just going to confirm that the first row does contain field names. Now by default, it's going to set my layer projection to WGS 84, which I'm going to accept since my X and Y coordinates are in latitude, longitude, decimal degrees. And the X coordinate field is just my longitude, since the longitude coordinates follow along the X axis. And my Y coordinate field is lat for latitude, since those coordinates follow along the Y axis. So I'm going to select those and then click Apply. At this point in time, I see that I have a new layer that's been added to my Map Data View Documents table of contents, and then also have the Layer Properties dialog box pop up where I can set the properties for the layer. And so the very first thing I'm going to change is the layer name, which by default is just the file name. I'm just going to change this so that it's more readable. And I'll just call it National Parks. And then I'm also going to change the legend. So I'm going to go from my Layer Properties tab to my Legend tab. And right now my legend type is just a simple legend, which means it wants to use the same symbol for all the features. But I want to change this. But the first thing I'm going to do is change my symbol. So right now, as the simple legend type, it has a single symbol, which is just this blue star by default. And I'm going to change this by double clicking on the symbol, and I'm going to choose one of these pen symbols. So I'm going to choose this red pen. So I'm just going to select it from my palette and click OK. And in addition, I now want to change my legend. Instead of a simple legend, I want to use a proportional legend, because I want to change the size of this symbol based upon the number of annual visitors to the park, so that the more annual visitors a park has, the bigger this symbol appears. So I'm going to change my legend type to proportional, and then for the proportional field, I'm going to select from the drop down and select visitors as the field that it's going to base the size of the symbol on. And so I'm now going to have Simple GIS go ahead and create my different classifications for me based upon the min value and max value in this visitors field. So underneath my legend grid here, I'm going to select this Auto Classify Ranges. And as I click this box, I get an option to choose the number of classifications that I want, and I'm going to leave it set to 4. It also tells me what the min value and max value is in the field I selected as the proportional field. And I can also choose whether I want to proportion my symbol by the color, the size, or both. In this case, I don't want to change my color and use a gradient. I'm going to change my symbol by the size of the symbol, and I'm going to set an upper bound for this max symbol size to 200% of its original. So this will vary the symbol size from its original size at 100% up to 200% across 4 classifications. And so once I've set that, I simply click Apply. And I see that it has now created these classifications for me based upon these min values and max values with that symbol. So now that I've set that, I'm going to click Apply. I now see that it has changed the legend in my table of contents based upon those classifications. And I'm going to go ahead and close my Add Layers dialog box. And I now see that it has placed the pins on my map, and I see the varying sizes based upon the number of annual visitors to the park. And I'm just going to zoom into my map at this point to make it a little clearer. And also, as I go to publish my web application, the initial extent of my web map will be based upon the same extent as my map data view document. And right now, if I was to view the attribute data on any of these parks by clicking on their pin, I would select the national parks. It is my current layer, as I can see by this green shading. But if I was to click on this view feature data tool and come and click at the base of one of these pins, I would see my attribute data. And of course I have the name, visitors, and description, but I also have the photos. But of course right now, just in this default attribute dialog box, there's nothing special about that. It just shows you the name of the folder. So if I actually want to have the pictures within that folder appear in my web application, I need to specify the linked documents in my particular layer. And the way I do that is through a custom data form. And so what I mean, if I dismiss this dialog box for now, if I come back to my national parks and double click on it to bring up the layer properties, there's a setting on this first tab called attribute data form, and there's a custom form editor. And this allows you to build a custom data form for your attribute data. In addition, it also allows you to specify fields that contain linked documents, whether it be photos or other document types like Excel spreadsheets, PDF documents, or what have you. So if I was to click on this custom form editor, it's going to bring me up to my visual form designer. And so this particular area here that shows my gridded form area, this is my design area. And I can drop all of these different types of controls on this form. So in this case, again, the folders contain photos related to the park. And so the control I'm going to drop on this form is called image thumbnails. If it was just a single photo, so if that file name contained an actual file name to a photo, I could use the image preview, which is good for just a single photo. But if it's a folder containing multiple photos, I could use this image thumbnails control. And so I click on this image thumbnails and I'm going to drop it on the form. I get this control that drops on the form, and then I have a set of properties I can set at the bottom. And it sees that it automatically defaults to my image thumbnails tab for the property settings. And the property I really need to set is the data field that contains the folder that contains the photos that I'm linking to. So in this case, if I click on this drop down, I see that I have all of the available fields in my current layer. And again, the field that contains the folder for the photos is simply called photos. I don't need to worry about adding the other fields to my form because the web publisher will automatically pick up those fields. It's only if any of these fields are really links to other documents do I need to include them in this custom data form, because the web publisher will read the properties of my custom data form to determine what linked documents that need to be included in my web mapping application. So at this point, I'm just simply going to add an OK button to provide a convenient means to dismiss this form when I need to. And then I'm also going to resize my form to just fit around my controls. So right now my form covers this entire area, as I can tell by the grid. So to resize it, I can just move to the edge of the current form. When I see my mouse cursor change to the arrows, I can just simply click and drag to resize my form to fit my controls. And now that I have that, I'll simply click apply. Now I'm back to my layer properties dialog. I'll click apply once more. And now if I use my view feature data tool for any of these features and I click at the base of the pen, I see that I get my new custom data form to pop up. And in addition, I see all of those photos that I just linked to those features. using this custom data form. So now my setup is pretty much complete in Simple GIS Client, and all I need to do is publish my map to the web. Or actually, it's going to publish it to a local folder on my PC that I can then copy to the web. So at this point, I've already got the Simple GIS Collaborate plugin loaded, and I can see that I have the Simple GIS Collaborate menu now. If you need instructions on how to load plugins in Simple GIS Client, you can consult the user manual that comes with Simple GIS Client. You can also visit our website at www.simplegissoftware.com. So if I was to go to Simple GIS Collaborate, to my menu, I have this new menu option called Publish Map to Web. So as I select this menu option, of course I'm running the trial version of Simple GIS Collaborate. It comes with a 30-day free trial, just like Simple GIS Client. If I had an activation code, if I had purchased a license, I could enter that here, but I'm just going to dismiss this dialog box for now. I still have 29 days remaining in my trial. And at this point, I get this new Publish Map to Web dialog. So the very first thing I need to select is the folder to publish my web mapping application to. This will be the area that I'll temporarily save it to, and I can preview my web mapping application before I either copy it to my website or to a third-party site that's hosting for me. So in this case, I'm going to click on the Select Folder button, and I'm underneath my Public Documents folder, and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just going to click the New Folder button, and then I'm going to type a new name for my folder. And I'll just call this Web Example for now. And click OK. And I'm going to keep that folder selection, click Apply, and it places it here in my Publish Web Map to folder. If I want to add a title block to my web mapping application, I can specify a logo if I choose to. So I can come here and select logo. I can come and select different pictures if I wanted to. I could also add a map title if I needed to. So and then a subtitle. So I can have two different title lines. And then I can also specify the position of my title block, whether I want it in the upper left corner of my web page, in the upper right, bottom left, or bottom right. I'll just leave it selected to the upper right for now. And next I need to select the layers that I want to publish. So I can select National Parks and my base map, my tile mapping service based on the Stamen tiles, as the two layers that I want to publish, which also happens to be the only two layers I have loaded in this current map document. Also, I can specify if I wanted to which layers that I want to be initially visible in my map. So if I wanted to limit which layer was initially visible, I could do that, and then the user would have to go to the layer control to turn on visibility for the other layers. But I'm going to leave this selected right now for both of them. In addition, if I was to select National Parks, of course on the tile mapping service, that's just a raster image, so I don't have any fields to choose. But on my National Parks, I can actually choose which fields that I want to have visible in a pop-up as users click on that particular feature. So obviously I don't need the latitude, longitude, so I'm going to uncheck those. In addition, I can select the different fields here, and I can specify an alias for these field names. So if instead of having the abbreviated for the description, if I wanted to spell this out, I could specify that as an alias. And actually I misspelled that, I forgot my S, so there we go. And then I can also specify the minimum and maximum zoom level for my web mapping application. So most of your tile mapping services, you can find online documentation that tells you the range of zoom levels they support. So this web mapping application is going to be based upon the Leaflet open source library, JavaScript libraries for Slippy map. And so what this does is you can specify the minimum and maximum zoom levels your map will support. So I'm going to bump down my maximum zoom level some based upon this tile mapping service that I'm using for my base map. And now for my include in legend, I do want to include a legend on my web mapping application, so I do want to include the national parks in my legend. And again, I can also specify the position of my legend, which by default is in the bottom right corner of my web page, and I'm just going to accept the default. The web publisher will take any event layers like spreadsheets or CSV files or shape files and convert those into GeoJSON format. So one of the things you can do is specify the precision of your coordinates in your GeoJSON document. And so the GeoJSON document will take the actual coordinate information, which in this case is latitude and longitude, and it puts that in a text format, and you can specify the number of decimal places. So obviously the more decimal places you have, the more accurate your position, location, but also the more space it takes up. And of course in a web application, file size is critical. So in this case, if I was to go and look at my spreadsheet, I would see that my latitude and longitude coordinates are pretty much limited to no more than 2 decimal places. So I'm actually going to come back to my publish map to web, and I'm going to change my coordinate position down to 2 for 2 decimal places. I can also include search capabilities on my web mapping application, so I can allow users to search for field values in a particular layer. So in this case, I'm going to select national parks. It's the layer that I want to allow them to search, and I want to allow them to search by the name of the park. And again, I can specify the location for my search control on my web page. So I'm going to leave it set to the default of top left. In addition, I could also include a street address search by checking this box, and if I was to include this and check this box, this would give the users the ability to locate street addresses in your web mapping application. And as such, you can also specify which geocoder to use for your street address lookup. You can choose either the US Census Geocoder Service or the OpenStreetMap Geocoder Service. If you're pretty much limiting to look up street addresses in the US, particularly residential street addresses, you might get a little better results with the US Census Geocoder. Of course, if you're looking at international addresses, then you would need to use the OpenStreetMap geocoder. And it also works well for like place names, like city names, county names, and what have you. So I'm not going to include this address search in this particular demo, so I'll uncheck that. So at this point, we have all the information we need. So at this point, all we need to do is click Publish Web Map. And it has now generated the web mapping application, and it opens up your default browser to give you a preview of your web mapping application. So right now it has stored all of the necessary files in this web example folder that we created. And I see that I have my HTML file that it's using here. And again, this web mapping application is based upon the Leaflet open source JavaScript libraries. And so I see here are all of my park locations. Here's the legend that was added to the map, and here's my title block. In addition, I have a layer control here, and if I hover my mouse over, I can choose to turn layers on and off. And in addition, I have my search tool here that I can search for a particular park by name, and then I have my zoom controls. And if you'll notice, if I was to click on one of these park pins, it now pulls up the pop-up, and it's using the fields that we said to include with our web mapping application. So I have the name, the number of visitors, and the description, and then I also have the photos that we linked in. And I have this nice little slideshow that I can scroll through the photos that's been linked with our features. And of course, I can also click on these photos to bring up in a larger view, if I had it, into a separate tab on my web page. So I'll close this. If I was to click on my search tool, I could come here and I could enter in. And as I type in letters, it would appear for my search. And if I was to select that, then it goes to that pin location, and I can see the location. It zooms to that location along with the name, visitors, description information, and my photos for that as well in this pop-up. And of course, I have the zoom controls that I can zoom in and out on the map as well. And again, it's using the tile mapping service I had specified in my map data view document, along with the spreadsheet that we had built this layer off of. So now this is a nice web mapping application. We have it built, but again, it's just stored on our hard drive. So now if we wanted to share this, if we was to go and actually locate this folder, so if I was to go back to my public documents and look at my web example, and I would see that I have, here's all of the files included. So here's the main HTML file that has my map, and then of course I have the leaflet JavaScript libraries along with a jQuery library, and then I also have this data folder that has my GeoJSON file, which is in the form of a JavaScript in this case, and my documents contains all of the subfolders and photos related to those features. So now I have all of this information. So I could either copy this. If I had my own website that I was serving out, I could copy these files to my website and reference this to publish on my own website. Or I could use a file sharing cloud service that offers a public facing folder structure that can be shared and linked to host a static website. So for example, pCloud is a pretty good service that offers that public facing folder structure for a very reasonable price. For only a few dollars a month, you could use that service to host your website. And then there's others like the 5GB free. If you go to 5gbfree.com, they actually also offer web hosting services that's quite easy to use, and they actually offer a plan that you can get 5 gigabytes hosted for free. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use the pCloud service. So again, I'm going to close down this browser. If you just go to pcloud.com, and when you actually sign up, you can actually sign up for a free account, but the free account doesn't offer at this time the public-facing folder structure. So when you log in, when you create your account and log in, you may see a screen something like this, and you see these files here that you can browse through, and you might see this icon called public. And right now I had signed up for the free demo for this, but you can do a free trial, and then if you decide to purchase it, you can keep it, and it's, like I said, very affordable. But if you was to go to this public folder and open your public folder in pCloud, all you would need to do is upload the contents of your the folder that we published all our web application files to this public folder, and then just share that link to any users that you wanted to have access to your web application. So for instance, if I went to my public folder and then if I was to simply click the upload, And in the upload manager, instead of uploading a file, I'm going to upload an entire folder instead. So I'll select the folder upload tab and select pick folder. And now I'm actually going to come and I'm going to come to my public documents, and I'm going to select the web example folder and say upload. And it's going to prompt me. It says upload 55 files. I say yes. I see the status of the files as it's uploading. And it looks like it's pretty much done. Almost. I still got a few more that it's uploading. Some of these photos. So it's 48 files. I think it's done. So it's now uploaded all of those files, so I can close this box. And now on my public folder, what I want to do is I can come here to my web example. It's the folder I just uploaded. I'm going to click on this little three dots. I'm going to select share and select get link. And here's the actual link to this folder, and all I need to append to this link is my HTML page that I want the users to open. So I'm going to copy this link, and then if I open up this folder, the web application that always publishes this sgsmap.html. So if I was to come to a web browser and if I was to paste in, must not have copied my link. Okay, let me come back here to my pCloud and come back to my web example and say share get link. Make sure I copy this. And now on this web map example, I'm just going to append this sgsmap.html. And this is the actual link that you would share with your users. This is full link here. And as I click on that, there is my web mapping application. And that is it. We have just created a new web mapping application and we've published it to the internet. So anybody you share this link with could access your web mapping application. And again, they could click on any of these to pull up the information about that park. So this could be whatever you decide to map. And that's how easy it is. So I think you can see that it's quite easy to create your own web mapping application and publish it using this method. So with that pretty much concludes the demo. Again, for more information, just visit the website at www.simplegissoftware.com, and you can visit the products page and look at both Simple GIS Client, and if you look at the Simple GIS plugins, it'll describe the Simple GIS Collaborate plugin that is an extension of the Simple GIS Client that allows you to produce these web map applications. Thank you. Hope you have a good day.